So my first three books didn't sell very well. In fact, they didn't sell. I don't think it's true to say that I never met a single person who'd ever read any of my books, and even, I mean, other than my family and friends who claimed to have read it. Um, uh, and not only that, I'd never even met a person who had said, "I haven't read any of your books, but I have heard of them." And that is not an unfamiliar situation for a lot of writers. And in fact, I'd say it was the norm. Most writers are really deprived of any kind of meaningful sense of the readers, usually because there are no readers. So when I came to write this book, Netherland, my fourth book, I suppose, I was under more pressure than ever to write something which would actually be read by people. But the thing is, you can't actually worry too much about that stuff. It's counterintuitive. It's like a golf swing. When you start worrying about it, it goes horribly wrong. And you just have to write what you can do, write what you can, and hope for the best. I think if you start steering books into various imaginary, kind of commercially viable directions, I think you get into all sorts of trouble. I mean, sometimes it's art. Sometimes the question arises whether these days the publishing industry and indeed the habits of readers allow writers such as myself to build towards something valuable, or more valuable than than I was writing at the beginning of my writing career. And I suppose that it certainly used to be the case that that writers, novelists, would get a bunch of low-selling or non-selling novels published in the hope that they would eventually hit the jackpot of some kind. I think that's harder now. I really do think that's harder. But I do feel that there's a sort of silver lining to all that, which is to say that it's no longer an option to pump out a kind of a readable novel, because no one's going to read it. People are online, people are doing other things. Novels are a function of our leisure habits, and leisure habits do not really permit people just to sit there and read 40 books a year just to pass the time. People pass the time in different directions. So it's almost as if the bar has been raised, and for a novel to intervene now in the general culture, it has to really force itself on people. And I do think that in a way that's not such a terrible thing. It sort of it means that you have to try and do something exceptional. I think it does mean that I think it does mean that people will write novels less frequently than they did, hopefully. And it means that it will take. I think it may mean that novels will take longer to write, simply because, as I said, it's very hard to sort of pump out an intermediary novel just in the just in the hope that people are just going to read it, just for no other reason than it exists. That's just not going to happen. And I also think ultimately that novelists are not deterred by publishing gloom. They're deterred by other things, but not by publishing gloom. And if they are deterred by publishing gloom, then they're not really novelists. And so I don't think that I personally am not particularly downhearted about the state of the novel today, or the state of the reader today. Maybe because I was never very optimistic in the first place. I never had the expectation of anyone reading my books. I never had the experience of anyone reading my books. So if anyone reads them, I'm delighted.